Well, it's official. The All Blacks are in the Rugby World Cup final. I'm going to give you 3 takeaways from the game, kind of the main bullet points that I took from this vintage All Black performance, starting with the fact that we were already getting ready for the final in this game. If you look at the fact that we emptied the bench a little bit earlier this week, took off guys like Beauden Barrett, wrapped him in a bit of cotton wool, we're absolutely going to need him next week, took Sam Whitelock off, took Aaron Smith off. You could see that we were going to get some minutes into the boys that are the next cabs off the ranks, you know, your Finlay Christays, your ALBs, and kind of injected them into the game along with DMAC as well, trying to keep a little bit of gunpowder dry for next week. I think the most telling thing for me was the fact that we elected to play with 14 men for the last 5 minutes after that Scott Barrett yellow card. Like, when would you ever choose to play with 14 men in a World Cup knockout game? I think they were almost in training mode, thinking, okay, what happens if we do get a yellow card? God forbid, what happens if we do get a red card in the final? So I thought it was kind of smart that Fozzie made that call. Let's get some reps out there in the heat of battle with just 14 men. I loved it because, let's be honest, there's been a lot of cards in this tournament. The All Blacks certainly have had ill discipline in the early pool games. They've tightened it up, but hey, they had 2 yellow cards against Ireland. Who's to say they won't cop one next week? So I like the fact that they were preparing for that. I don't want to say eventuality, but possibility. The second major bullet point from this game for me was that we earned the right to go wide. This was not a game where we flung the ball wide indiscriminately, even though we did have the wood on the Argies in our backline attack. What I absolutely loved about this performance from the All Blacks was that there was a lot of pick and go. There was a lot of attrition around the rucks. We really wore them down. We continued our beautiful breakdown work that you saw against Ireland last week. And we just hit those rucks with a vengeance. Argentina was pretty strong in the first 10 minutes. You know, they did come out with that passion, which I must say did start to kind of subside after 10 minutes. You didn't see that fiery Latin temperament that you sometimes see in the Pumas, you know, when they play their best, and certainly when they have beaten the All Blacks in 2020 and 2022. But I think part of that was the All Blacks just took the sting out of them. They absolutely took them on up front. And look, Will Jordan got a hat trick, exquisite rugby. We did get the ball into space, but if you really look back at the highlights, all the hard work was done up front. And I think what was absolutely key was shading the Argies in that breakdown area. And we did that beautifully. And the third point I want to make here is really about the psychology of the All Blacks. They really played with freedom this week. And look, last week, best rugby game I have ever seen in my life. I think my reaction at full time really said it all. An epic game that probably should have been the final of the World Cup. But it's almost like for the All Blacks to get through that game against Ireland and knock off the team that has inflicted the most psychological damage to them in the last 4-year World Cup cycle, they were sort of liberated psychologically. You know, it wasn't that there was complacency, but they just played with a real fluidity and looseness. It was almost like there was a monkey off their back. So I think it's actually going to be critical to go in the final with that same attitude. Our point of difference is our attack. It's our ability to get that lightning fast ball, move quickly after we've done the work up the middle. But make no mistake about it, moving quickly, keeping the ball in play. That is how we can beat an England or a South Africa. It's our point of difference. It's in our DNA as Kiwis. And yeah, I just love the freedom that the All Blacks played with today. They certainly didn't look overawed by the occasion. Weren't complacent, but just, you got the feeling, boys, we've got this. We're confident. And yeah, I really think that win against Ireland did wonders for them psychologically. So look, as an All Black fan, even the most diehard of us were very worried about that quarterfinal last week, and we recognized that the Irish were the favorites. Now we are going into a World Cup final. Sam Whitelock's the first dude to ever make 3 World Cup finals. Just mind-blowing. But Fozzie and the assistant coaches have really turned things around since last year. I mean, in retrospect, that loss to Argentina in Christchurch, well, some fruit came out of that today. Clearly, they learned some lessons about how to break down these Argies. And last week, you know, that series loss to Ireland in New Zealand was the critical inflection point for this team. That was actually when we turned the ship around. Bloody hard at the time. I remember I had to lay down on the floor you know, literally for like an hour, just hugging myself after that third game in Wellington. But I think in retrospect, we've seen that was kind of the making of this All Black team. So whatever happens next week, very proud of the boys. I think we can do it. I think we can go all the way. Like and subscribe. And if you've been enjoying my All Blacks content, don't forget to look at Cup of Dreams, my feature documentary about the All Blacks. And what can I say? Go the All Blacks. Very happy Kiwi here. All right, guys. Catch you later. Bye. Whoosh.